we're talking about.
Yeah.
And good evening. Welcome to the Marion City Council Workshop for the City of March in the year of 2022. We'll begin with our pledge to the flag. I'll ask Councilman Hand to please lead us in that pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Councilman. The records reflect that all members of council, with the exception of Councilwoman Foster, are present and accounted for. Her absence is excused due to not feeling well. We'll begin with our review of the minutes. We have several sets of minutes this evening. This is the February 5th council retreat, February 9th and February 14th regular meetings, and the February 23rd budget workshop. Are there any questions, concerns, additions, addendums from council? Okay. I saw nothing that required attention, so that'll be up for your approval on Monday evening. Next, I'll ask members of the council if there's anything on the agenda that is a conflict of interest for them.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. With no conflicts, we shall move on. I'm going to ask the public if they have any comment on anything not on the agenda this evening. Comments this evening are restricted to 3 minutes, as is typical. And if anyone would like to speak, please step up, introduce yourself and your address, and we'll hear your comments. Ma'am?
Take me a minute.
Not a problem.
Can the two of us come up at one time?
You may. I just ask you to introduce each of you, and there's a microphone over here to the side.
Thank you. Ruth Harlan, 106 Clubside Drive.
And I'm Nancy Blow, 600 Clubside Drive.
The pandemic interrupted the relationship between our Carol Vista volunteers and Taneytown. I am currently the president of the board of directors.
And I'm vice president of the board. Tell you a little bit about myself. I am retired from Francis Scott Key in Carroll County. I retired in 2014. I was there for 10 years and Century for 2. And I've been actually residing in the Taneytown area for 20 years. So I'm kind of an old folk.
I've only been here 16 with my husband, Michael. We are here as ambassadors to rekindle that relationship face-to-face and person-to-person. So we look forward to moving forward once the weather gets nice and it's easier for us to get around and get our volunteers in Carol Vista back active and supporting our city too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate that.
Do I need to sign here?
Yes, please, if you would.
Okay. Ladies, do it. Good evening. My name is Kenyatta Brooks, and this is my husband, Joseph Brooks. I've been a resident of Taneytown since we built our property, our home, back in 2002, 2001, 2002. We've raised 2 sets of children here. We have 2 girls and a boy that are all grown. I'm a native of Detroit, Michigan, and they're all gone back. And then they're not our biological children, but they were raised here in Taneytown. We have 2 boys and a girl, 11th grader, 12th grader, and a 4th grader that goes to Runnymede. The 12th grader's at Gilman. Our 11th grade son is at Concordia Prep in Towson. So we're no stranger to Taneytown. And being that we've raised two sets of children here, we kind of get a feel for Taneytown. And we know, you know, the good old boys say, keep your nose clean, you stay out of trouble, you have no problems. So I have a question, and that is, with our demographics, with us growing the way that we are growing, okay, the census as of 2020 indicates that we have over 7,200 residents here. I'd like to know, when is the mayor available to the citizens of Taneytown? And I understand you guys can't answer me today, and that's fine. And I'd also like to know who is responsible for overseeing your Taneytown Police Department. Okay. I also like to know, do we have any racial problems within or out of our local police department here? Or do we have any racial problems in Taneytown as a whole? Now, I've been here now for over 20 years, so I kind of get a feel for what our neighborhoods are like, for what our city is like, for what our town is like, for what our county is like. And we do choose to raise our children here because it is a safe place and it's a wonderful place to live, as long as we all understand why we're meeting of the minds here. I also have a question: is there racial issues in the city hall? Communicating with the mayor's office, your hiring process, who helps write your codes? You know, I don't often see any faces that look like me or look like my children that hold positions here. So these are just some questions that I have. And like I said, I've quietly lived here, kept my nose clean and stayed out of trouble, get along for the sake of being able to live in a wonderful area. But that's a little sad if you think about it, that my thought is to keep my nose clean and to just do the right thing, and you'll never encounter issues. So those are my questions to the council and to the mayor's office today. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And my address is 202 Morning Frost Street. Thank you. Did I say this was my husband?
You did. I believe Joseph was the name, is that correct? Joseph. Joseph, very good, it's a pleasure. The city will respond to your questions if you ensure that the clerk has contact information, whether by email or phone number. We'll gladly answer you. I will answer the one question as it pursues to myself. As the mayor, I am in City Hall every Friday and always available to speak on Fridays. So feel free to stop by or make an appointment, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you. All right, would anyone else like to speak this evening on non-agenda items? Okay. Hearing nothing else, we will move on. Resolutions, ordinances, and agreements for introduction on Monday night. We do have 4 ordinances. We'll begin with Ordinance 02-2022. This is the proposed fiscal year 2022 to 2023 operating budget. This was reviewed in depth at our budget workshop. I hope that everyone on council has had a chance to review, and we'll see now, do you have any questions or concerns regarding that budget as it's been presented to you? You will note from follow-up that there was the addition of the stipend for Parks and Rec Advisory Board members in there as well. Everyone good with it?
Yes, sir.
All right, that'll be up to be introduced on Monday evening. Ordinance 03-2022 is the fiscal year 22-23 water sewer rate. That is remaining the same as in previous years, with no need to increase it and no ability to decrease it at this time. Do we have any questions or concerns among council with that? All right, everyone's satisfied? Very good. That, again, up for introduction Monday evening. Next, we have Ordinance 04-2022, the fiscal year 2022 to 23 tax rate. That is remaining the same at 37 cents per $100 of assessed value. That does exceed the constant yield tax rate from the state, so we will be publishing a notice accordingly. but we are not changing our tax rate as of right now. Any concerns, questions regarding that from council? Okay. Very good. That'll be introduced Monday. Ordinance 05-2022 is ordinance to set up the Main Street Advisory Board. I believe, Mr. Weeprick, do you wish to speak to this before we start our discussion?
I can.
Thank you, sir.
Where's my computer timed out on me?
Jim, while you're doing that, I want to comment on something real quick. So you'll notice in your packets for this that there are logo designs. These logo designs are not specific to the city or any branding that are indicative of the city itself. This is specifically just for the Main Street Board. It's a separate thing. Jay came up with this on his own accord, did a great job. So this is stuff that's going to be specific to the Main Street Advisory Board.
Okay.
Okay. So, just a little background quickly, since we have a room full of folks who may not be familiar. Taneytown is a Main Street, Maryland, and national Main Street city. And we have had a Main Street Board in the past, and they operated essentially largely independently of the city, with the economic development director for the city acting as the Main Street manager. That group has been on hiatus throughout the pandemic, and many of the volunteers either burned out or lost interest. Things were kind of waning leading up to the pandemic. But we thought that this was a good time to kind of restart things and to adopt an ordinance that will basically create a new Main Street Board as an official board of the city, which was not done previously. The original board of directors was, I suppose, endorsed by the mayor and council, but then over the years, members came and went, and there wasn't really any council involvement on how those members were appointed to the board. So this ordinance basically creates a new board of directors, speaks to the eligibility requirements for the board, how people are appointed, and how the chair is appointed, which is through the mayor's appointment. And it speaks to their terms of office, and criteria include things this time around. Basically, we're looking for people who are more stakeholders in the downtown area. So either people who own property, reside there, or are going to represent a business in the Main Street area. So basically, it's just kind of formalizing the board and the structure of the board so that we can kind of jumpstart Main Street once again.
The discussions I have had with our economic development director is essentially to look at a Main Street 2.0. Time to restart it, reignite, but hold it a little closer to the chest. That way we are a little more cognizant of what it's doing, particularly the financial side of things. As part of this board, they would have to report to the council, on a regular basis. I would nominate members to the board as necessary, and council would approve like you would with any other board that we have in the city. So this makes an official board. In the past, we've had concerns regarding, open meetings compliance, and that was always skirted by saying that it wasn't a board of the city. I believe it needs to be. It needs to be subject to the same rules that all of our boards and council are subject to. So that's the intention here. You can see it's quite an ordinance. It has a lot in there. Has everyone had a chance to read over?
Yeah.
All right, I'll accept any questions.
Well, I was just going to ask you, with Jay, Diane, and I having our little committee to discuss, were our recommendations kind of handed over to Mish to take a look at and cross-reference, I guess, to take any of our concerns?
I believe I don't know that the official report was given to Mish. I know that items of concern were discussed with him in the forming of this.
Okay. Only because it's been a while and I don't remember exactly what we had.
Right, I understand, yep. We did bring those concerns, the positives and the negatives of it, to him in preparation of making a better Main Street.
Awesome.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I have two, if I might.
Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Okay, so I know you and Jim had just mentioned that the going into the piece of legislation. The Main Street Advisory Board shall consist of 7 members appointed by the mayor with the consent of the council. So you're talking about how I guess the consent would be the same process as we would with any other board. You would nominate someone and we would vote to confirm them. Do we want to change, I mean, is the wording with the consent sufficient for that process? Or do we need to change that to reflect the fact that it would be a confirmation process rather than just, like, say, a casual consent? Like, because, we have meetings where we'll consent to issue a directive to city administration.
Right.
Or, but because this is a more formalized thing, do we need to denote that it is going to be something that is formalized with a confirmation process?
We could certainly substitute the word confirmation of the council rather than consent of the council.
Okay.
Let's just make sure that matches the wording in the other parts of our code.
Okay.
And then my second question, I know, and Jim had alluded to this a few minutes ago, with previous members of the previous version of this board kind of coming and going, was there ever really, and if you don't know the answer, that's okay, I need to find out, that's all right, but was there ever really a set number of people on this board, or did that also fluctuate as well? Because I seem to remember sitting in on 1 or 2 meetings that sometimes there were maybe 5 people there, and other times there were like 20 people in the room. And I'm just wondering how we arrived specifically at the number 7 versus, say, 15 or something.
The 7 is the Economic Development Director's recommendation. And I think that was to get that kind of cross-section of, or variety of business representatives, property owners, residents. In the past, I don't believe there was a cap on the number of members. And yes, you are correct, at least as far as attendees, the numbers did fluctuate quite a bit over the
Wildly,
years.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
I believe the 7 consists of the fact that there are a number of subcommittees as a
Thank
part
you.
of Main Street.
Yes.
And so that covers that, plus more or less members that are not committed to a subcommittee as well. So I believe that's where the 7 came from. I advocate for kind of a limited member board. 5 is my ideal, but in this case, because of the subcommittees, 7 made a lot more sense.
Well, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Questions, concerns? Councilman Haynes, do you have anything from Mish that would?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Trying to think if there was anything that stood out to me. I know this has been reviewed by the city attorney, and changes were made accordingly from that. Everything else okay? Very good. With that, we're going to introduce that on Monday evening as well. Moving on to what will be up for adoption Monday evening, we have Resolution 2022-03. That is the water allocation for the month of March. Any questions, concerns? I'll ask the Mayor Pro Tem, does all the math add up?
I did it longhand and all the math checks out.
Excellent. I appreciate the longhand. Make sure you show your notes next time.
Oh, I can show you right now.
Oh, that's okay. Everyone else good?
See, there it is.
There it is. All right. Next, we have Ordinance 01-2022. This is the fiscal year 21-22 budget amendment number 2. Mr. Wieprick, would you like to introduce to us what we're looking at here?
Sure. So shuffle for a moment. Okay. So just to summarize, I know we kind of went through this in more detail last month, but on the general fund, the revenue increase is basically in real estate tax and use of, authorizing use of police impact fee money, which is going to be offset on the expense side, primarily for schematic design work for police department, police station renovation, and potentially expansion, salary adjustments to aid retention, and also offset by the skid loader that we purchased this year that was not in the original budget.
For Public Works.
For Public Works, yes.
Thank you.
And on the utility fund side, we've decreased the revenue side by decreasing the targeted use of fund balance for capital projects. And that was due to the shift from the original plan of doing the water tank and standpipe rehabilitation as a capital project and shifting that over to the long-term maintenance agreement that we have now as a maintenance and repairs and contractual. So the overall utility funds, we reduced the use of target or use of fund balance. And let's see, so we reduced capital, but we increased maintenance and repairs. And we also added in there the penalties that we paid to the Maryland Department of the Environment that, again, were unbudgeted. So, but the net result is using less of fund balance than was originally targeted for the utility fund.
Excellent. Any questions from council? Is that fairly clear? I know these were discussed last month. All right. That will be up for your approval or adoption on Monday evening. Following that, we'll go back to Mr. Wieprick. Do you have a city manager report for us this evening, sir?
Sure thing. So the capital improvement program is getting close, but still not quite there. We've wrapped up water, sewer, streets, stormwater management. The couple items that we're still working on is the schematic design for a new public works facility. The guys, as you probably noticed from the public works report, have had a very busy time of late with several water leaks throughout the city. So they haven't been able to really focus on the capital improvement stuff as much. But we're still working on a cost estimate for the new public works facility, and also on one of the city hall projects that we had talked about with an earlier draft of the capital improvement program was to restore the cupola on the top of this building. And in conversation about that, it was called to our attention that when we did some roof work recently, that the condition of the roof here is that we need to think about re-roofing both this side of the building and the smaller side that has the rubber roof. So we still need to get some cost estimates on that, but that's going to be within that 6-year capital window. So we're close, and hopefully it will be before you soon. Let's see, moving on, the Sewell Annexation. We did reschedule the hearing to May 4th, and we've provided the annexation plan to the county, so we've met our 60-day period where we need to advise the county and provide information to them 60 days prior to the public hearing on an annexation. So that is moving forward. Planning and Zoning Director Hale and I met with the Sewell team on March 2nd just to basically discuss the path forward for potential development of the property upon annexation. No firm dates, no firm number of houses or anything like that at this point. They were just looking for some direction on gauging their expectations on how quickly we will have capacities available and things like that. They also talked about, again, the idea of developing a development rights and responsibilities agreement with the city. So they do remain interested in that. And we should be hearing more from them in the next couple months. But again, the hearing was pushed back to May. Last thing, let's see, Gervanian Terrace is very close to being completed. The site's been fine graded and seeded. If anybody's cares to take a look, head in Gervanian Terrace off Gervanian Road and turn on Supreme Court, which is the little dead-end stub, and the pond is right there in front of you. I think it's turned out very nicely. There's some punch list stuff to do, and we are waiting for the as-built drawings to be done by the surveyors. So I think the folks at Gervanian Terrace will be very happy to not have dump trucks running back and forth all day long. So a little bit of relief there. And on the Meadow Brook Sewer Interceptor, we had a pre-construction meeting on February 22nd. Folks from Crane Masters or B&B Properties, the property owner where most of this work was going to happen, was there. Maryland Midland Railroad was there and State Highway was there. So the grading permit's been issued. We do have to revise our erosion and sediment control. I just saw an email from the county grading inspector. The property owner would like us to use a different access point from Route 194 to go in and out of the property and to store materials. So that was a plan that they requested, or a change they requested at the pre-construction meeting. So we have to make some updates on our plans accordingly, and there is going to be a little bit of additional review as a result of that request. But so far, it does not look like there's going to be any delay. The contractor wasn't planning to mobilize until the end of this month, and that's kind of contingent on materials being available as well. So the pipe is in, but manholes are still on order. So depending upon the supply chain, could be the end of this month, but that's kind of best case scenario.
But you don't expect the more reviews required to interrupt the timeline?
I think it should be a pretty quick turnaround. So it's really just regarding the access point from Route 194. There's an existing paved access farther north from the main entrance to the Crane Master site. It's just a little stub of blacktop
From the old road?
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's where they would like us to shift the construction entrance. Certainly would have been helpful to know that earlier in the process, but we can adapt and get Soil Conservation's approval on it, and I expect a pretty quick turnaround.
Okay. Any questions for the city manager on his report? It's quite extensive, a lot of things, a lot of balls up in the air right now. All right. With that, do we have any questions on the departmental reports as they were presented to you this evening? No? All right. Mr. Gullo has not joined us this evening, so we will not have a legal report. Nothing for old business, which brings us into our new business. First, we have our monthly financial report as presented to you. Do you have any questions or concerns regarding that report? Get to the right screen, stand by. All right, if everyone is satisfied, we'll move on to our accounts payables. Any questions on the money we've paid out this month? Concerns? No? All right. Then our last item of business is the Meads Crossing surety reduction. If you recall, this was kind of moved to this month from last. And once again, I'm going to throw the talking ball over to Mr. Wieprick and have him give us a summary.
Sure. So construction in Phase 1 and 1A out there is largely complete. There's about 5% of the road paving remains, 5% of stormwater management, and about 10% of sidewalks. Those are three things that we bond with the developer to make sure the work gets done. Basically, all the other public improvements or things that we'll eventually accept have been completed. Public Works has verified those levels of completion, so we're recommending that we reduce their construction surety to $86,680, which is 110% of the sum of the work left to do out there. So we always hold an extra 10% above the estimate.
So they're moving along quite nicely there.
Yes.
Questions, comments, concerns? Everything sit well with council? Okay. As you said, this has gone through Public Works and everybody, and we're happy. Okay. Hearing nothing, that'll be up for your approval on Monday evening. With that, we come to our public comment pertaining to agenda items. If you wish to speak on a topic that is on this sheet of paper, we'd be more than happy to hear from you. All right. Hearing nothing, I'll ask members of council for a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Very good. On the motion to adjourn from Councilman Fuller and a second by Councilman Hand, all in favor of adjourning for the evening signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you all for joining us this evening.